Yes.
Good evening. I call to order the Town of McCandless Planning Commission, July 5th. Before we begin, in recognition and honor of our fellow Planning Commission member, Greg Wilcox, who passed away last week, I think it appropriate to observe a moment of silence. Thank you. First up on the agenda, the continued review of the Weaver Plan Simple Division application. Please, thank you.
I am going to pull this up on the screen while we've got the applicant's representative, Dan Harrison, who's here.
So this is a two-lot simple subdivision along Fox Road in the R2 zoning district. We had addressed most of the comments from the Gateway review letter from last time. I think most notably was the lot width at front yard area. We just very slightly adjusted the lot line. And there were a couple other minor technical comments that we took care of. All that's left are it's more of a formality, but to provide utility letters confirming service availability, which all utilities run out Fox Road. It's a plan to be reviewed by the fire marshal and kind of determination of which way the applicant wants to take their sanitary sewer, concurrence with MTSA.
And those things are typically addressed before issuing a building permit anyway. If these were pre-existing lots where one was unbuilt, we would still have to get the green sheet from MTSA and all of the utility letters. So at least for our purposes, the two things that were identified for zoning questions was one, a side yard setback needed to be revised. That has been done. And also making sure that we have at least 90-foot lot width at the building line, which that has been accomplished. So at least from the standpoint of the things that the planning commission, that subdivision approvals review, everything is in order at this point.
I guess I just had a question for the town fire marshal. Is that as simple as emailing it to the addresses that are on the website?
So yeah, we actually I meant to address that. Thank you for reminding me. That's just a staff member that we have in our department. So anytime we get a plan in, right off the top, we just hand him a copy of it. If he has any particular comments, he'll typically call them out directly to the applicant. But it's a comment that remains on the review letters just in case that hasn't been done. But in this case, we've passed it off to Jeff, and there was nothing that he provided.
Any questions, Sal? So I didn't know, like last week, the building line was less than 90 feet. The purpose was to extend it 90 feet. So and I know there's some ambiguity between the building line and the road frontage.
Yeah.
So are both the lot frontage, the road frontage and the building line meet the 90 feet?
Yeah, before the road frontage did, but the setback didn't.
Correct. Okay.
Just moved it back to meet both. So the setback is kind of the restricting area. We adjusted it to be 90 feet there.
Okay. I guess no further questions. Are there any public comments? Hearing none, I guess I need a motion to recommend the town council the Weaver Plan's simple subdivision application. I move. Sean, second. Al.
I just saying, I think that the motion needs to reflect the outstanding issues. The subject to.
Were these like given, like they're always contingent, or does the motion need to reflect those?
So Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, because you probably did the plan review with Shannon on this one, right?
Well, it was the engineer's recommendation.
Right,
We
so
include these in our
Yeah.
approval. That's why I said it.
you could put it contingent if you want. I mean, the contingency in this case typically says like, we won't even let you record your plan until this stuff is addressed. So, we could wait, we could have them wait to record it until they let MTSA know like where the sewer facilities planning module should be, which watershed that should be going to, or service area rather. But that might not necessarily be accomplished within the 90-day period that they have to record after approval. Is that what you usually see, Kelly, or do sewage facilities planning modules tend to move a little faster than NPDES?
It definitely varies. MPDS is typically longer, but sewage planning can be an arduous process with response time.
I mean, we could still make it contingent, and then the applicant, we're able to just affix a clause to the plan when all of that is done to allow them to record it. So if that's something that you all feel should be present, we can do that.
It goes with my theory I've said before, is that we're sending something to council that, and since the engineer in his own letter, I think it was Dan's letter,
Yeah.
kind of recommending, subject to, I just thought.
Yeah.
We should carry
We
that
can
forward.
hang on to it so that it's not signed and recorded until those are accomplished with the contingency.
Okay,
That's my thought.
so amended motion to pass contingent on meeting the qualifications in the letter.
Contingent. I think the way that we're supposed to go is, Sean, do you consent to amending the motion?
I do.
Al, do you still second with the amended motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you.
And Dan, we normally would be doing planning meetings at the second meeting of the month, but I'm actually going to be at the first council meeting of the month for July, so that is July 11th, if you're able to attend that. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Next item on the agenda, discuss potential action on public comment for time limits on, for public comments. Over the last several meetings, we've had some, public comments that were a bit lengthy. We were reminded of a 5-minute limit for public speaking at the township meetings. And we're maybe just, it was mentioned for consideration for adopting into the planning commission. So it would help facilitate, move the rate or the pace of the meeting. The idea that people would come maybe a little more prepared to keep their, comments a little more succinct, just in the spirit of moving the meeting along. So I guess is there any comments or thoughts on that?
I'm in favor. Because it doesn't prevent someone from talking multiple times for 5
Correct, yeah.
minutes if it's on a different topic. So you're not.
Mhm.
I mean, it's up to, at least right now, we don't have any official policy period on the books for the planning commission. And the planning commission has the ability to make its own meeting procedure in that way. So it's up to you all whether you want to let somebody do any question and answer at all, or if you want to say no back and forth. It's up to you, whatever time limit you want to set. If you want to say you can comment more than once if more information comes up, like all of that is up to you all as a body. So I think that those are some good, points to consider when formalizing a policy. We don't need to do a resolution or anything like that. That's a town council thing, but at least we can sort of memorialize it somewhere.
To Shelley's point, could someone talk 5 times for 5 minutes at a meeting?
That would be up to however you decide to adopt the policy.
But I was suggesting, Al, that what I was talking about, if there were five different things on the agenda, they wanted to talk at all of them, they would have that right to do it. And even a 6th time, because then there's the general comment opportunity. So
But on any one item, it would be 5 minutes.
it's a general.
I mean, we're thinking about. Yeah, I don't have a problem. The only thing I would suggest or think about is it's not like we have 50 people to speak at a meeting.
Mhm.
So, and this is their community. So if you want them to say what they have to say and be part of it, it may look like you're squeezing them out of that conversation, particularly if they can't come back up and talk. Well, I'm not saying that should make us do more, but yeah. And some of these people don't come with an attorney. They're just a person who lives in the neighborhood and has a couple ideas. I know on the ridge, when the last guy that exposed, I know it took him a while to do, but he had some decent comments to think about. And if you gave him 5 minutes, I don't know if they'd have come across or not. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't do 5 minutes. I'm just,
I'd like to speak to this. If, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. So the way the town council meetings are done is before a vote is taken, there's a ask for the motion, the second, and then that's the time when you would say, does anyone on planning commission have any comments? And then you say, is there any public comment? So that person can make a comment on each vote. And the 5-minute limit allows, is, I believe, respectful to all the other people who are waiting and to the planning commission. And if there is if they have more to say, they are certainly free to put it in writing and send it to the commission ahead of time to make all of those points if they feel like 5 minutes is not enough. If they want to speak before that vote. So it's really worked out very well for us. And it really does kind of let people, get to their comments. And it's really not the responsibility of town council or the planning commission to educate a citizen to come up and have to teach them about zoning. And sometimes that's what it gets into when it gets kind of a longer time. It's not a comment. It's more of teach me this or help me understand that. And if they have those types of questions, then they need to contact RJ. And that's, part of her job to help people understand, kind of what's going on. So it's really not an education time. It's a comment time. And most people can get their comments in 5 minutes. And then there's always the written option. So that's been the philosophy of town council. And I just kind of wanted you to hear that perspective.
I think it's better to have a policy on the books than not to have a policy on the books. Big crowd here tonight. But in the event that there is actually something contentious or there's a lot of people who are interested, I think it's probably better that we have something that we can rely on to have some semblance of order versus an ad hoc. All right, this is what we're going to do. And then people say, well, when was that your policy? And say, well, since like 2 minutes ago. I would prefer that. Now, I don't personally have a problem with 5 minutes. To me, two questions would be, when is the opportunity for public comment? Is it immediately prior to a vote? Is it after the applicant's presentation and before there's a discussion amongst the planning commission? Is it after the planning commission's talked amongst ourselves? And then a separate question would be, the back and forth. Is it intended that the public comment can be geared to obtaining answers from the planning commission and or obtaining answers from the applicant? Or is it just merely a public comment? Thank you very much for your comments. We'll give it due course. If it's worthwhile for the applicant to come back up, which I think happened last week or last month, they can do so, but what's the level of interactivity associated with that? Because that's always another part with the period of time of who are you addressing your comments to. I'm open on that one. My thought is generally public comment is comment and not inquiry and interrogation, but I could be persuaded one way or the other if that's something that matters to anyone here.
That's a tricky one just for me as sitting in, from my point of view as administrator, like looking at just the ridge. For example, one of the commenters asked, are you going to use blasting? Because that was a quarry at some point. And the applicant came back and said, no, and maybe that is a question that it was beneficial to have it answered on the record, But that said, I think it's still, I think it would be great to decide how much, or at least a general framework of how much of that is okay at this stage. But I also think there's still, ultimately the person who's chairing the meeting has the ability to go, okay, we got to, rein it in here. Like, this has been helpful, but we have to, like, there's still some empowerment of the chair to run the meeting.
I would encourage the planning commission to follow the lead of town council. I think it helps citizens have consistency and know what to expect. But also my opinion.
Well, I think maybe probably be better to have a motion, something to vote on, so we have an established policy. We're ready to do that now. If someone wants to make a motion, or we can.
Well, okay, so it sounds like let's sort of organize what we are or are not potentially adopting here. So, okay, it sounds like everyone likes the 5-minute limit. Is that accurate? Okay, I know from emails with Dan as well, he was on board with that. So, okay, 5-minute limit. We're good on that. Brendan, I think to your first question, what we've been doing with public comment so far is the presentation is allowed to be given. So that way the commenters have the same information that we do. And then we invite,
Ask public comment after we've had discussions and back and forth with the presenter.
Right. So, and then again, it's really up to the chair, the commission, whatnot. Unless we want to formalize that further, it's up to the chair whether the applicant, has the chance to clarify anything. So are we on the same page for when that comment occurs? We're going to continue doing it the way that we have. Yes? Okay, I'm getting nods.
Yeah.
So, okay, keep time of comment the same. And Brendan's last question was level of back and forth. Do we want any of that? Do we want to say we can ask questions of the applicant, but we're not getting back and forth at all with the public? Or like what's the group preference on that one?
I would lean to steer away from the back and forth unless there was a specific redirect from the applicant that was a response to that maybe warranted some type of response or follow up. But I think that determination could be made by the chair.
So follow up is at discretion of meeting chair. Does that sound accurate?
So in that case, would we direct the applicant to answer a public comment question? Is that how it would work?
That could be the commission's purview.
I would encourage the commission that consistency is important, and you don't want one citizen feeling like their question wasn't answered, but the next person's question was answered. It is called public comment because that's what it is. Any questions that they have can be submitted in writing and they can be answered that way. And that is how we've, tried to manage, that time.
Can I ask a question then? If a question comes in writing to RJ, then does RJ have a time frame she has to respond back to those questions? Or do they just come to the commission as,
Well, we're making procedures for the meeting. So this is not like, none of this discussion is if somebody puts something in writing to me and they email it and and I have to get back to them. And like, that's not what this motion can legislate.
No, I
That's
understand
not, I
that.
try to get back to people very quickly.
no, I know, but I understand, but the question was, or the statement was that this would be public comment, and if there are any questions based on what the applicant said in his presentation, those questions, if not addressed by us, would be addressed to you.
Presumably, yes.
Okay. And then I'm assuming you'll respond back to them directly?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that would be my practice in general, you know.
So just, because I just want to understand as well, so, and I think this is kind of how it worked at council. So kind of like that last time, someone, anyone could come up with, they've already spoken, they've given their public comment, and they decide they have another question for whatever reason. And they're like, I have another question. And that's where it kind of comes down to, you know, I mean, it would be at Dan's discretion, the chair's discretion. You know, I mean, I don't think anything's hard and fast, but I agree with what Kim said, consistency is good. But Dan could simply say, by way of example, it's like, ma'am or sir, you know, we've already had public comment on this, and any questions you have, please feel free to email RJ. And, you know, we'll be sure to, you know, get a response back to you. Is that what we're talking about here?
And they would also have the opportunity to talk at the town council meeting on that issue
Correct.
as well. So there's another way to follow up with questions.
Right.
Another way is the public commenter could ask the questions directly to the commission. Like, have you asked the applicant if there's going to be, you know, explosions or
Right,
you know,
and
whatever, and then we
comment.
could, right,
And I
exactly.
think the people that, you know, I've seen one on council who were used to the 5-minute rule came one very well prepared. Some of them knew how to talk for exactly 4 minutes and 59 seconds. They had everything written. They got to their points, and many times, for your example, is that I would like to know this, and I would like to know this. And I think that it's fair to say that council members often followed up on those questions as well.
I will also say that the developers historically have been very amenable to answering if a citizen shows up. The developer is sitting right there, and they themselves, they can talk to them themselves. And I've seen that happen many times. And I think that's a super nice collaboration. And it's very nice for the neighbors, excuse me, the neighbors to actually talk to the developer, and for the developer to see the neighbors as people. And that happens very frequently at the council level.
Right. That's another thing that the chair could do is say, you know, the developer is here tonight. Perhaps you two could get together following the meeting or, you know, after this. And it's right. I've seen that happen. And that's the best place to get the answers. People who know the most about what they're proposing.
Okay, so we are looking at follow-up generally no.
Generally,
Correct? Okay. Okay. I mean, at the meeting, at least, obviously, people can email me anything they want at any time. So, okay. So it looks like what proposal potentially someone would be making a motion on is 5-minute time limit per agenda item. Comments continue to occur at the same time on the agendas. And those are, like, that's the whole set of limitations. That's what you can do. You can come up and make your comment. Discretion of chair if there is a specific follow-up to the developer, but in general, direct them to get their questions answered at another time or elsewhere.
Yeah, or present additional time at the township meeting, right? So-
Well, oh, yeah, well, I mean, they can always do that, yes, but yeah. Okay, so that is the motion on the floor if anyone wants to make it.
I'll make it.
Shelley, second.
Al?
Al, all in favor of public comment, I guess? We'll need to, any further public comment?
Do we have any public comments? Okay,
Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
RJ, I think that, I'm just suggesting that maybe on the next agenda, you might want to put a, I don't know, a note. at the
that was my
bottom.
intent, yeah.
Okay, just, kind of start by having it in writing, so if this situation arises.
Well, that was when, this is a discussion that occurred between Dan, Jonathan and I, but, I had thought that it was a good idea to formalize it in a vote so that we could put that out there, and also so we don't run the risk of, well, someone told me that at some point 10 years ago, it's just that way, if a future body wants to change it, they've got to go on the record to change it, so we are formalized.
And I guess would that responsibility fall to you then about, like, time tracking?
So
or-
there's a button
Okay.
over there. That's what, this clock that is always a couple minutes late, I think is a couple minutes late because it's used to time comments and so it throws it off. But the timer's right. So yeah, that thing over there counts down from 5.
Okay, all right, perfect. Next item on the agenda, discussion on planning commission focus group for zoning Zotto project.
Yeah, so this was something that was mentioned in the communications overview document. That I think last month, I want to say we talked about. The consultants have offered to do a focus group with the planning commission sometimes this month, with not to exceed 3 members because 4 would be a quorum. And again, the point is draft documents. We don't want to put anything out in the wild that is not legitimately what we're doing moving forward. But that said, I did reach out to Dan since, of course he was not going to be here tonight, but I thought it made sense that as chair, we pull him into that. Shelley, I would assume that since you are a task force member, you're probably okay
Yes,
with sitting that one out.
Correct.
So assuming that you all are indeed interested in the body doing this, then I would ask the other remaining members if you pick amongst yourself, which 2 of you or up to 2 of you are interested in and would like to attend that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's fine.
You too, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do it.
Okay.
Greg and Al, please.
Okay. So,
RJ, what is the purpose of this focus group?
well, based on the last few meetings, the discussions that we had where, different members had, I guess, different level of interest in the amount of information received or the discussions taking place before the draft ends up in front of this body for, review and vote. I think the consultants, kind of responding to some of the concerns that were expressed had offered to include this session to sort of go over what we heard at the open house and where we're going from here.
And the planning commission as a body requested this?
Well,
I'm a little mixed up on, we have a steering committee focus group, so I'm a little mixed up on what this other, because if Shelley's already on it and then you take 3 more people.
I don't think that the planning commission as a group specifically asked for this focus meeting to be held, but that was just something that consultants had suggested as part of the response with the last couple meetings discussions that had been had.
Then maybe asking the planning commission as a body if they want this might be the first step before you appoint people to be on it.
Okay. Would you all like to express whether you want 3 members to be included in a focus session on the open house results.
I think that was the discussions that we had. So there's some kind of input along the way, not to necessarily steer the direction, but just so there was a more of an additional opportunities, open communication between the planning commission and I guess the interested parties. Brendan had brought up the issue too about what is the distinctions between individual would likes versus the position of the commission. So there's those distinctions also. Some of the comments that were voiced by the planning commission was just to have that invisibility, because the making the recommendation rested on the planning commission. That I think that I think I included was a voice that if there'd probably be no harm in attending the meetings just to see what those discussions what they were and what they were focused on, just so they have more of an in-depth knowledge as opposed to learning everything when it was presented at the planning commission. So and if we want to discuss farther independent participation in that, or as a planning commission, but I don't see anything wrong with having people in there that, especially if offered by the consultant, just as a more of an update, I think, and just some of the things that they're providing and the feedback that they've received from the open house on the project. So those are my thoughts. But
I just want, because I didn't know anything about this either. I don't have any issue with it either, but what I think I'm hearing is that because of the planning commission's various members' concerns about a lot of things related to how this was organized, that is the consultant is, I'm actually clarifying. The consultant is recommending or has offered, I don't know which, recommending or offered based upon some of the members of the planning commission's concerns that there be, like, in my opinion, not unlike where they came in and presented to the planning commission, right? That this is an opportunity post open house for some non-quorum group of the planning commission to just get a preview update of all the data that was been collected post open house. Is that what I'm hearing? It's a session, one meeting, one.
Yes.
yeah, I don't think it's
to share insights that they gained from the open house.
So it's really small on the screen in the room, so Brendan is admirably trying to read. So I'm just gonna blow this up on this section here. So this bullet point right here is what I'm referring to, which, yes, to your summary,
I
the,
don't remember that bullet point then, I apologize, but.
yes, it is at the very bottom, so. So they offered to schedule,
Cool.
This month. Just because, again, that was sort of what we were hearing the last couple months from the group, was they really wanted more communication methods, so
yeah.
they kind of just threw it out there.
It doesn't seem like this is like an ongoing thing. It's just
No,
more of a
it would
one-time
be
kind of meeting. So
a single meeting, yeah. So if that is something that interests the group, the offer is there from the consultants to do so.
I think Jonathan accurately reflected my view of it. So I would say I don't have a personal interest. I'm interested in the project, but I
Yeah.
didn't volunteer myself because I'm philosophically opposed to the exercise at this point. Not saying right or wrong. This is probably, I didn't see it on there from what I could glean with my poor vision, but to me, I don't know whether it's a planning commission focus group or whether it be a dedicated actual meeting, say a special meeting, the planning commission, after the proposed ordinances, or say the zoning ordinance and then the saldo are actually prepared, to at that point have the consultants say, here it is, and provide an overview, a walkthrough of,
Oh, that will
How did
occur.
that happen?
Yes, we'll do that for sure. either
so is
way.
that like a,
This
because to me, it's like okay, I can read it, but at least give me some context for what I'm
Yes.
seeing here so I can read it with that view.
right.
That to me is where I think that there'd be utility in actually the planning commission, because we've got to sort through the thing, hearing or maybe interacting with the consultant.
Right.
So I can see that. So it's not like I disagree with the concept of interacting with a consultant. But I've said my piece on the other part, so I won't restate it.
I felt that if this did move forward, you would probably not be the, because this would be the weeds, you know, but again, they just offered it, since what we heard at some of the prior meetings were that there were some members that not only wanted to get into that, but had some anxiety over not, you know, having one of those meetings. So I mean, it's there if they want it, you know, it's not anything that will be developed enough that we would be prepared to share it at a special meeting, because it's just going to be, this is what we've heard so far, this is where we might go with it, you know.
So
So yeah.
not to make it more of a dead issue than the dead issue requires, but in terms of the scope of what's intended with the bullet point there and the getting into the weeds, to the extent the planning commission is going to entertain this concept, which fine, there should at least, I think, be some degree of guide rails in terms of what is the level of expected detail, or say an agenda of what would be discussed. I mean, it's our job to get into the weeds because we have to review the ordinance. I'm very much interested in getting into the weeds, but if there's an expectation that there's going to be real detailed type, hey, this is a specific thing that I have a specific comment about in Article 7, subsection 6BI42, what are we going to do about it? Is that something that the consultants are necessarily contemplating? And then with that, my fear kind of gets back to the broader, we've got to focus, we've got a something, not a focus group, whatever it's called already.
Task force.
Task force. So it's the distinction between the planning commission and anybody else that the town is appointed to do things versus a citizen. And I'd say trying to not make our voices heard to a more substantial degree than others who may be stakeholders in the process, where, I mean, someone certainly can email, you know, I've emailed to get into the weeds, but if we say, well, there's that group, there's a general public, but let us tell you what we really think as members or representatives or people who go back to the planning commission, is that going to steer the process a different direction than the overall setup had originally been designed to do? I don't know the answer, but that'd be my, and I have no doubt that whoever identified that, wouldn't be a problem, but to me, it'd be the situation of what is the expectation of what we're going to get out of it, or what we should get out of it, such that if there's a report back, we met with the planners, this is what we talked about, and then it's, well, that either satisfies what we want, or, well, did you ask this, were we expecting it that? I'm disappointed because the consultants weren't able to answer X, Y, and Z, and then we've got a jaded view of it, or, hey, I'm super happy that they said if they want to do everything that I like, or that I suggested, and then someone somewhere else says, well, that's great, but I have my own thoughts, my own views. Is your input getting heard over mine? I don't know. Those things come to mind. Whether or not they're actually real, I don't know, but
I mean, I think if it's a perspective that can be imagined in a discussion like this, then it's not out of the realm of possibility that it's one that someone would hold, you know. I mean, I don't want to speak for consultants that aren't here, but I'm just trying to sort of parse out what I've heard from them and what the discussions have been since some, you know, members expressed their concerns over the last few months. And I don't know that anyone has sat down and really thought like, okay, we're gonna do this, this, and this in this, potential meeting, so much as they were hearing from the group that there's an interest in increased opportunities for conversation, for an input point. Some members are not as concerned about having that type of input in the process at this point, or, like you emailed me and I forwarded all of that onto the consultants. I think it was just something that they were just offering because they were looking for ways to meet the ask. But if the concern is, well, there might be an equal weight of, opinions or anything, I don't think the intent is that they're taking a list from this to, okay, we're gonna do this, this, and this because we heard in this meeting, so much as this is kind of where we're at and this is what we heard at the open house. But again, it's up to all of you. I mean, you don't have to do it if you think that it's not the right fit. It's just something that was on the table.
It seems like the opportunity at the now much improved communication with the planning commission, the updates. If you want to update the planning commission on what's happened at the public, I can't think of what it's called now. I'm sorry, the public
Open house.
Thank you so much. The public open house, then why not do it for the entire planning commission and hear their comments related to that at the planning meeting as an agenda item? And there you have the feedback of all the planning commission when you give their update.
I don't know if that's, that just wasn't what was offered by the consultants because they didn't feel like they were at a stage in which they would be prepared to have these discussions at a public meeting, knowing that things can be soundbite clip, things can be taken out of context, and somebody might hear a concept that was just something that came up as a public comment, but not necessarily something that would be the will of this group or of council or, what, et cetera, et cetera. And we're still at a stage where we're not prepared to say, this is it, And so I think that's why they offered this option as a non-quorum option. But again, I'm not meaning to speak for people that aren't here, just kind of trying to parse through what I've heard.
Sure. Yeah.
Discretion of the chair.
Jason Singer, 8314 East Van Buren Drive, Ward 4 Council Representative. Just a brief opinion on that matter. You're the planning commission. You've been appointed by all members of council. We've been voted by the electorate. You've been appointed by all members. When this comes all the way through to our table at the very end of this, we're going to look at your recommendations of what you said. You've been appointed by all of council. Yes, there is a task force. The task force was not appointed by all members of council. So therefore, when I look at this planning commission, I'm going to look at you guys to make a recommendation at your best efforts. So I would suggest take all efforts you can. If their consultants are willing to do that, please take that opportunity because it's coming to us last. We get the last say on it for sure, but we're going to look at everything that's gotten to this point, and this planning commission should have as much detail as possible. We don't want to rubber stamp this through. I don't want to see it rubber stamped through planning commission. I don't want to see it rubber stamped through town council. So take all opportunities that you can to review and give it to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like maybe at this point,
We need to vote
yeah,
on this. I mean, I don't think there's any strong objections from the planning commission if individuals want to attend. I guess they can volunteer to do so.
yeah.
So,
Again, we can take up to 3.
Right.
So
Okay.
this has not actually been scheduled yet. I was waiting, before I heard from all of you to coordinate further with the consultants. So I'm going to tentatively assume that if this does occur, that Sean and Al, you are the other two that would be interested. Okay. If, assuming this does move forward, which it probably will, I will be in touch with you all to schedule that. Dan, Sean, and Al.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of the June 2nd minutes.
move to approve.
Shelley, second?
I'll second, but don't we have to do something with any edits or comments? Wasn't that a point of?
Is that the-
So
we did that last-
motion is now on the table, but,
Just like it, did
Yeah.
anyone have any comments or edits or something? Wasn't there like that?
we talked
before
about
we
that last
approved
time,
and
yeah.
said,
Right, that's right. That's right.
All right,
Okay.
any edits or
Yeah, are there
comments?
any edits or comments to the minutes? Okay. Okay. No comments? Motion, Shelley, you still motion to?
I move to
Okay.
approve.
Still second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes. General public comment?
We're getting a no from the audience.
No? Okay, I think the only thing left is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's adjourned.
Okay, 7:45.
Thank you, everyone. You're doing a great